Hello. Well, guess what? I'm going to have company tomorrow. It's actually 6:45 and it's already dark outside. I personally don't like this getting dark early, so I'm really dreading this clock turn back. I mean, I get tired at 5 o'clock when it gets dark. Anyway, I've got company coming tomorrow, and I really didn't have any dessert, and I thought, I think I'll just fix some from scratch chocolate cupcakes. This is actually called a mini cake recipe, but I'm going to use it for cupcakes. So I'm going to start out with 1 1/2 cups all-purpose flour, which is in my mixing bowl right now. Now we're going to do our dry ingredients first in this, okay? So I've got 1 1/2 cup all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup plus 2, now this sounds like a lot of cocoa, 1/2 cup plus 2 teaspoons of cocoa. But this is actually like a Hershey cake a mini Hershey cake. I'm making some cupcakes out of it. So it's going to be rich. 1/2 cup plus 2 teaspoons. And I've got my apron on because when I'm fooling with flour and cocoa and everything else under the sun, I sure know how to make a mess. Take my big wooden spoon and just mix that together as good as you can. Yeah, I just didn't have anything, and I thought, well, if I'm going to have company, we might as well have some kind of dessert, and who doesn't like a good chocolate cupcake with some good icing on it? So I've got 1 1/2 cups all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup plus 2 teaspoons of your cocoa. Hershey's is what I use. You can use what you darn well like. 1 teaspoon of baking powder. We're using 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Make sure you get all that out of there. And we have 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. We're putting right in this. We're doing our dry ingredients first. And we're going to mix that around a little bit. And we're going to go with 1/2 teaspoon of salt. 1/2 teaspoon. Right in there with our dry ingredients. Mix that all well. I've also got my oven already preheating. Now in this, we're going to go ahead and add our sugar, which is 1.5 cups. This is going to be a rich cake. This is a mini Hershey cake. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. So we got 1 cup and 1/2 of sugar. Yeah, believe me, this is not for those who are watching calories, okay? So go ahead and mix that around. So these are our dry ingredients that we've got here. Now, we're going to start putting the other ones in too. It calls for 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. We're going to add that in a minute. And 2 eggs. So we're going to go ahead and take our eggs. I've got them here. I don't really have them as room temperature as I like. I like room temperature, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and use them anyway because I just came up with this plan. These are fresh eggs, so I'm going to bust them in a container. Make sure they're all right. That one's okay. You never know on a fresh egg. Sometimes on fresh eggs, if you don't do that, then that one looks okay. You might come up with one that's bad, that that we forgot to get, or a chicken had hid and we got later and it got a little bit bad on us. Take a fork and beat those up. Beat those eggs up. Good. Now I'm going to go ahead and add our vanilla, okay, which calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Right into my egg. I'm going to just add it right directly into my egg. Teaspoon of vanilla. Right in my egg. We're going to mix that up well. I had a cake mix in there, but you know, sometimes I just homemade stuff tastes a little bit better, and I thought I'd just do these super chocolate cupcakes for tomorrow. So I got my vanilla and eggs mixed in. I'm going to add that to the dry ingredients right now. I'm adding 6 tablespoons of real butter that I have softened. 6 tablespoons of real butter. And I'm going to add, this is going to be a rich cake, guys. Let me rinse this out just real quickly. We're going to add 1/4 plus 2 tablespoons. I'm sorry, we're going to add only 1/4 cup of oil. 1/4 cup of oil. So we got 6 tablespoons of real butter. And if you want to do 6 teaspoons of real butter, if you want to do that, what you do is take your stick of butter and there's lines, and you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and cut it down, okay? So your stick of butter will already have the lines on it for you. So just cut it down. So 6, when you get your stick of butter out, just follow the lines. When you come to 6, there it is. Melt it in a 1/4 cup of oil. This is going to be a very rich cake. And with your spoon, go ahead and incorporate that. You don't have to do it really, really good. Just incorporate the dry ingredients, because we're going to use our mixer here in a minute. You'll find that this is getting thick. Okay, we're going to use 3/4 cup of buttermilk. I do not have buttermilk, so what I did was took a cup of milk and added a teaspoon of vinegar and let it sit for a minute. That will actually turn your milk into kind of a buttermilk. So anytime you need buttermilk and you don't have it, just add a little bit of vinegar to your regular milk. And we're going to use 3/4 cup of milk. It's not buttermilk, but I made my own buttermilk by adding a little bit of vinegar. Go ahead and pour that in there. And go ahead and, it's going to be stiff, but that's okay. Just go ahead and incorporate. We're going to get the mixer out. Just kind of mix it around a little bit. We will get our mixer out, so don't fear. And we got, the last thing we're going to use on this is 1/4 cup and 2 tablespoons of hot water. And I mean, I want it hot. So we're going to use 2 tablespoons, 1/4 cup and 2 tablespoons of hot water. Put this in the microwave and I'll be right back. I want it bubbling. I want it very hot. Alright, I'm back. I put my water in the microwave, and it is very important for you to do this step to make sure this water is hot. And if I was making this in the morning, I would probably use coffee instead. Coffee is really good with it too. But tonight I'm using water. So it's important to please, this is an important step to this recipe, is to use not warm water, hot water. Okay, see how it's steaming? So we're going to go ahead and pour that in there. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and use our mixer, starting out on low, because if you're like me, you will slush it everywhere. Once you get it incorporated good, we're going to turn it up. I'm doing it on low first. I don't want it splattering all over everybody. Okay, now I'm going to incorporate it. Mix it good. Then I'm going to turn it on high just for about 30 seconds. And there it is. So let's go over this recipe again. This is a Hershey chocolate cupcake recipe. It's actually a Hershey cake recipe that's been cut in half. Okay, so what we started out with is 1 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. Put the dry ingredients in first. I've got a 1/2 cup plus 2 teaspoons of unsweetened cocoa. That's a lot of cocoa, but it really makes it taste good. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of salt. That's your dry ingredients. You will mix that up. You're going to put 1 1/2 cup of regular sugar in that too. Then you're going to mix all that up real good. Then next, we're going to take a stick of butter if you have it. I prefer butter, but you could use margarine. I'll let you off the stick, but cut 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, melt it, put it in there. Then we're going to do a 1/4 cup of oil on top of that in here too. Then we're going to take 2 eggs. I prefer warm temperature egg, but because this was just like all of a sudden I decided I need something, I didn't quite let them get warm enough, but they're okay. Bust your eggs, if they're fresh eggs, 1 at a time. Make sure they're good and mix them up good. Put them in there. Then we're going to take our 3/4 cup of, you can use regular milk or buttermilk. I didn't have buttermilk. I like the taste of buttermilk, so I added a teaspoon of vinegar with a cup of milk. I let it sit for a minute, and then I put my 3/4 of milk in this. After that, you're going to take your 2 large eggs, put your 2 large eggs in there, and we're going to then take a 1/4 cup of very hot water, okay? So very hot water in this. And then we're going to go ahead and taste that. Let me get something, let me use my spoon I did my vanilla on and taste that. That is very rich. It's going to be very good. If you had kids, they could lick this. But I'm not going to lick it, although it's pretty dang good. Alright, so this is a 1/2 cake, okay? So what you could do if you had 6-inch pans, little 6-inch pans, you can make a layer cake. Or if you had a big 8-inch, you could just make one 8-inch in there. But what I'm going to do is cupcakes, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'll show you how I do it. It's kind of a little mess, but hang in there with me. Pour your chocolate in your cup like that. Your chocolate cake mix. We're going to pour right in here like this. Let me move this out of the way for just a moment. And like I said, I do have my oven turned on to 350. I've got my cake tins in here. And I've got a funnel. And I'm going to pour that through that funnel. And let that pour in there just like so. If you I could use a little bit bigger funnel. That's one way to do it, to keep your cake mix from going everywhere. I fill them about half full, but this is one way to do it, is just to use a funnel like that. And then I don't have cake all over my pan, and I don't have to. This is going to probably make around a dozen. And if you don't have a funnel and you don't want to use a funnel, you can just use your cup thing. But when you do, like I said, fill these about half full. You might make a mess. Fill them half full. But there's no mess that can't be cleaned up with water, right? Half full. I've got it. It's already half full. Just like that. I'm going to come over here and get some more. Kind of a Makes kind of a little bit of a mess. Half full. Half full. So actually the funnel works, or this works either way. Because of time purposes, I'm going to go ahead and see what I'm saying. It's getting all over my pan. Now, I'm going to go ahead. I thought that I wouldn't have to use it all, but it looks like I'm going to have to use it all. So we're just going to put a few more of these in there. So I'm going to end up with a dozen. Hopefully I got another one of those left. Looks like I'm going to end up with a dozen chocolate cupcakes here. And like I said, this is why I like to use a funnel, because I end up with a big mess. But it's a little slow, so for time purposes, I'm using the old measuring cup for you. But you will end up with kind of a mess going on here. Fill about half full. Half full. Half full. If you see some that aren't quite as full as you want, go ahead and add a little more. Between half full to 3/4 full. If you want a bigger cupcake, make it 3/4, okay? All right, so I've got a dozen chocolate cake cupcakes here. I'm going to take a paper towel because, like I said, when you use, that's the reason I kind of like to use a funnel, because when I use a funnel, I don't have all this going on here. So I've got 12 of the Hershey cupcakes mix in here, and we're going to cook these, and then we're going to see how they turn out. So I've got them in my oven at 350. I'm going to put these in, and cupcakes don't take very long to cook. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in there. Now, I'm going to tell you something else while I've got y'all here. This is leftover frozen icing. Yes, you can freeze icing, and it does very well. This happens to be icing that was frozen from a wedding cake. This is wedding cake icing, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to convert it into chocolate icing, which is going to be very easy done. And this is made out of part butter and part shortening. So it's a wedding, and the reason you use shortening for wedding cake icing, because it stays together better. If you have to have it out in the heat or anything, it just holds better. So that's why shortening icing is better for cakes for if you're going to be outside, okay, to hold together better. So we're going to take a bowl. And we're just going to scoop some of this out. And it melted quite quickly. I don't know about you guys. I don't like just tons of icing on stuff. I like to taste the cake. So we're just going to go ahead and take our cocoa here, and we're just going to turn this into a chocolate icing. Yeah, icings freeze good. Even if you buy it from the store and you don't use it all, it will freeze good. Now this is the problem. You got to be very gentle with this as you're incorporating it, okay? It will eventually get incorporated. You just have to work with it. And as it melts down, it will mix together. You just have to be a little bit, just have a little bit of patience with it. So yeah, don't throw your leftover icing away, because even if you have a little bit left over, you can use it for cookies. You know, make some sugar cookies for the holidays. Get the leftover icing that you didn't pitch out. And this will eventually get incorporated, okay? And I just guessed on the cocoa. So don't throw your leftover icing away. It freezes good. And butter icing is good if you're going to eat it quick, or but it's not a good icing if you're going to take out somewhere. So just an FYI. That's the reason a lot of your wedding cakes will be made with this shortening icing. Just because of that. My finger is clean, so I'm scraping that off, and I just keep incorporating this. Before long, we'll have that cocoa icing in this. You can use food coloring too, if you wanted to. You could make them, if you had some food coloring, just add a couple drops of food coloring to it, and you can make them anyway. So that's just getting just about there, and I'll show you in a minute. So yeah, see, if I didn't have that in the freezer frozen, I would have had to make up some. But I didn't. And this will turn out just fine. And I don't know if I will pipe it. Pipe it means just putting in a bag and piping it, or if I'll just spread it smooth. I haven't decided on that yet. All right, I've got that incorporated. So see, it started out white, and I incorporated cocoa in it. And I just incorporate it, you just keep stirring and stirring, and it'll eventually get there, okay? So that's going to be for the top of my cupcakes. And when they get done, cupcakes don't take a long time to cool down. Once they get done, they get cooled down a little bit. We'll put this icing on them. And I actually would not even have to ice them until tomorrow. I could wrap them up good, and I could ice them first thing in the morning. I could put aluminum foil or plastic wrap over that really tight and put it in the refrigerator. It'd be perfectly good for tomorrow. Just set it out for a minute and let it get soft. So there it is. So we've made our cupcakes that's in the oven baking. We've got our icing that I saved, froze. That's the reason I'm always talking about freezing stuff. If I didn't have that in the freezer, I'd have to be getting the powdered sugar out and making some. But I had this already in the freezer. Icing freezes good. Don't be scared to freeze it. And let's go over this recipe one more time, because I was jumping around town. It's really good. You need to try it. Are you ready? 1 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. We got 1/2 cup plus 2 teaspoons of cocoa, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 1/2 cup of sugar. You mix all your dry ingredients together. 4 tablespoons of butter, or 6 tablespoons of butter, and take your stick out. You just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cut it. You melt that. Then you're going to put your oil in it, which is a 1/4 cup of oil. A teaspoon of vanilla extract. We're going to put in that. We're going to put 3/4 cup of regular or buttermilk, whichever you prefer. In there, 2 large eggs we're going to put in there. 1/4 cup of very hot water at the very end. And make sure it's very hot. Mix that well with your mixer. You can put it, like I said, in a cake pan, an 8-inch cake pan, 2 small 6-inch ones if you'd like, or you can make cupcakes like me. So once these get done, we'll be back and I'll show you the outcome. Okay, I got them out of the oven, and here they are. Perfect size. Now I'm going to show you how I do my cupcakes. These are still a little bit on the warm side. I'm going to go ahead and do them a little bit warm tonight. And then when they're warm and I want to do them, I put a glob of icing on the very top of it. Take your knife, and what you're going to do is make a circle. Go one direction. Okay? Just go one direction with that icing. And if you will do that, you will not tear your cake up or your cupcake up. They're not going to be the prettiest, but they're going to taste good. I'm not going to get real fancy with these. But see, if you just go around in a circle, your cupcake will not fall apart. Put a glob on the top. Take your knife. It's just slightly warm. And just go the same direction. Do not go the opposite direction. So I'm just going the same direction at all times as I'm icing my cupcake, okay? I'm not doing decorating here. I'm just icing a plain old cupcake like Grandma would do if the grandkids were standing around looking. See? And your cupcake will not tear apart then. Put it right on top. These are lightly warm. You're going to go the same direction with your knife. Okay? Because you start tearing the cake up when it's warm like this, a little bit on the warm side, when you start going different directions. So you just go that one direction with that knife. That's that same direction, even though I went a little bit, it's still, see? And I'll show you in just a minute what I'm going to, so put a generous amount on it too, to start with. Just grab that, go around the same direction. This is the quick way. We're not decorating for birthdays or anything like that, making them pretty. This is just for dessert, and they'll still be fine. Same direction. Pull. Same direction. Do not go the opposite direction when doing this. These are, like I said, slightly warm. I didn't let them cool all the way, but that's okay. If I do it this way, where I'm going the same direction with this cupcake, even though it's warm, it will not tear apart. Okay? If you need to add a little more, that's fine. Just right on with the same direction. The same direction. And that will definitely keep them from falling apart. Take your knife, same direction. You want maybe some more, that's fine, put it on there, but just always make sure that's going that same direction, and you're not trying to go all over it back and forth, or you will grab some hot cake and make a mess, okay? Let me do these last two. I've got them on my platter, and I'm going to show you how they're going to look. And they look pretty good, not to be all fancy and decorated. Same direction. Same direction. If you have to add more, that's fine. Just make sure you continue to go that same direction, okay? I add a little bit more over here, but I'm going to go the same direction. Got one more to do, and then I'm going to show you. This is how I will put them out tomorrow. I'll wrap these up good. Make sure you put enough icing on these to do this. Same direction. Just pull and around. Pull and around. Pull and around. If you need to add more, like I said, that's fine. Just go around. Now, let me show you what I've got here. And actually, they're not too bad. See? So those are my cupcakes that I iced. And I just didn't do them immediately when they got out of the oven. Actually, when they got out of the oven, I took my cupcakes out of the tins and let them sit for just a second to cool them down quicker. But if you will do, like I said, even though they are warm, if you will take this, let me find one that could use a little bit more icing, and I'll show you one more time. Let's just do this one. You'll put a glob on there, and you're going to go the same direction with that knife, okay? The same direction. Do not go back and forth, because that's what will tear the cupcake up. Going back and forth. You'll grab a piece of that cake. So anytime you do that, just go the same direction. And I had one that kind of tore up on me, and I already took a bite of it, and it does seem like it's going to be very tasty tomorrow. So here it is. Here is my dessert that I made, and these are Hersey Cocoa Cupcakes. Thank you for joining me. It is now almost 8 o'clock, and I finally got my dessert done. Have a great night. Thank you.